You know, it's somewhat of a terrible Wednesday in terms of having to do all this. Is, first of all, this is a very weird release when it comes to a film, and the fact that like we as a community that actually want to go see this thing and like give Toei money have to go through like these crazy hoops just to be able to watch said content, because I'm having to drive, no kidding, when I put the address to the theater, my closest theater that is playing this film is at 106 miles away from my house. So I am literally driving almost pretty much an hour 40 minutes just to get to the closest theater to watch this movie that just had, for the longest time, just one single date and one single showing, which makes no sense. Of course, they recently added more showings, but it's odd that they would do it after a lot of us have already pre-purchased our tickets. Either way, I'm already an hour into the drive, had to deal with a lot of work calls, so here we go, more driving ahead. All right, just made it to the theater. Looks like I parked next to some weebs, so you know I'm in the right spot. So we've kind of come full circle. The first video that I posted up on this channel when I rebooted it was actually the Shin Kamen Rider teaser trailer. Now, I would be lying if I didn't say that the subsequent trailers that have come out since then did not leave me more than less enthused about this film. Though finally, after about a year and a half, I can finally say that I've seen it. I have seen Shin Kamen Rider. And can I just say that as someone who's been a fan of this franchise for literal decades, to finally have the opportunity to watch something like this in the full theater experience, I certainly wasn't about to miss out on that chance. Now, first off, I do have a quick complaint about the distribution of this film. The fact that we had limited viewing options, literally one time slot available, and limited theatrical release made this a little bit of a chore to get to, as I personally had to drive over 100 miles just one way to reach the nearest theater that was actually playing this film. Was it worth it? I'd say so. I actually met somebody that actually knew who I was. That was a shock. But also, having the interaction with other folks that were Kamen Rider fans right after the movie as well. We literally spent nearly 20 to 30 minutes after the movie just talking about the movie. That in itself is something you can't take away, which is why I gotta go see it again on Monday. Now, this is going to be a spoiler-free video regarding the film and what my feelings are regarding it. I will be going to the repeat viewing on Monday, like I said, so afterwards, I will do a proper review with the usual review shenanigans. Now, before getting into the initial thoughts, I do have to say that a couple of months ago, Toei did put out a video by the name of Shin Kamen Rider Special Airing Episode 1. That is exactly the beginning of this film. It's somewhat readily available and sets the tone for how blood splattery this film is. And there is a lot of blood. So much so that I found it hilariously ridiculous, which is exactly how this film felt at times. This film had all the flavorings of the 1970s in it, just done with modern cinematography. After coming off of the heels of Shin Godzilla followed by Shin Ultraman, I was curious how Hideaki Anno would handle the scale of fighting done in a much smaller sense. And I am absolutely impressed with just how each fight in this film felt unique, as though they were tackling a different IP's fighting style over the ages. Just to list a few examples without going into what specific fights they were, in one sense, they had the old style camera technique where the character would jump cut from one spot to another just to give you the illusion of super speed. Another fight felt as though I was watching something out of old Dragon Ball Z, before everything just became ki blasts. They even went as far as to making specific scenes look like they were reusing footage multiple times, giving us that stock footage effect. Another felt as though we were stepping into a full martial arts flick in a way. It's very Kill Bill in a sense if you've ever seen those films. The fights alone are just so well orchestrated and angled that the trailers really don't do this film justice. The sound design is another great piece onto itself, as the audio cues do find their roots in the source material. Even the OST itself has that old school meets new school flavor. Now the plot itself is as ridiculous as you'd expect, with a few tropes thrown in there to propel the story forward. The slight negatives that I have with the story go more into how abrupt things go. It just begins balls deep and ends what I felt a little abruptly. I was literally going like, that's it? Really? There's gotta be more, right? Which is why a second viewing is absolutely necessary, especially to pick up on a lot of the things that this movie has to offer. Because the film itself not only has some really nice Easter eggs, but it also has references to the original show and manga as to be expected, but there's also sprinkles of callbacks to well-known production issues that they had with the original shows, as well as diving into other outside references from the franchise. Of the characters properly revealed from the trailers, Ichimonji Hayato was actually the surprise star for me, as Hongo's character felt a little less so, and his narrative was completely centered around the character of Ruriko, who at first I did not really care for, but as the film progressed, I came to really like how her character developed. The Gaijins, or Augs, as they refer to them here, really had a life of their own. Though their screen time may have been around 10 minutes or so for each one, I actually enjoyed every single one of their introductions and how their character arcs played out. I will say, however, that there were several instances of the CG just not looking great. And you'd think with the budget and the time spent in production that it would have been a lot better. But honestly, it's not that much of a major gripe for me, because if you've been watching the show, then you kind of know what to expect. Overall, I will say that this film is a very good film, but may give newcomers to the franchise a false sense that this is how the franchise actually is. The film itself actually does feel like what the director imagined the show being back when he was a kid, and although it does take itself seriously, there are several points of comedic effect thrown in there. I will say that also at the showing that I was at, there were a fair amount of people there, somewhere around the neighborhood of about 30 or so folks. And some scenes did elicit the stereotypical American clapping. The theater experience really elevated how I perceived this film, and right now in my head I'm kind of hovering around an A, but I don't like giving a formal review score until I see something again. So, this time I'm gonna be going to that theater with some pen and paper, so let's go. Since this is a spoiler-free video, I will ask that you guys in the comments that have seen the film try and keep spoilers to a minimum or just not at all, as all that can be left for a later on discussion. But if you did see the film, how would you rank that first viewing? Are you going to watch it again? And for those of you that haven't seen it yet and have the options to see it in theaters, are you going to that next showing? Anyway, that's it for me. I'll catch you all next time with the full, proper, spoiler-filled review. Until then, bye.